Welcome to this episode on All Things LOCS, where we discuss everything related to leadership, operation, culture, and strategy. I'm pretty fired up because today we're going to be talking about clarity or lack of clarity around numbers and goals. So here's the thing. Many business owners are running their companies with their gut and not with hard data. And they often don't know like what cash flow profits are. They don't know what certain KPIs are. They don't know where their acquisition costs or revenue goals. And this lack of clarity can create quite a bit of turmoil inside of an organization, which leads to reactive decision making. And so I'm here with Dan, and I wanted to ask you, what's the real cost of business owners not knowing their numbers, and how does it show up on day-to-day operations?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is it's when you're looking at growth, it's how can you actually grow a business if you're not keeping track of your numbers, right? So, and throughout this episode, we're going to be talking about setting some financial goals, but even now, it's like, how do you set the right financial goal without understanding where am I currently at? What am I actually making? Which I think is part of the major challenge that a lot of business owners just focus on. How much are we making? And then there's no other focus on how much are we actually spending? And they a lot of times I do think some of it is just an ego aspect where we want to focus on this big fat juicy number. And then there's this other aspect where it's just some ignorance. And I always find it kind of funny when you ask, maybe a room full of business owners, how many of you love numbers? And not the whole, the whole room doesn't raise their hands. It's like half of them like, I hate numbers. It's like, you're in the business of trying to understand that. So I think there's just an ignorance is like this aspect where they don't like math and they kind of associate the two together. So for me, it's just really about understanding, where we're at. And I think about it like losing weight, right? It's like I'm going to go to the gym and get in shape, and then you don't know what your vitals are. You don't know where your body mass index, you don't even know what your weight is. And then you're like, I'm just going to go there and show up. And that's honestly what a lot of people do. But then there's people in business who kind of run their business the same way. So
What's a way to kind of switch someone's mindset? Because it sounds like with anything, people are conditioned to believe a certain thing. So like I feel there's some cultures where they have a deep appreciation of math and numbers and finances, where like that's very much talked around around like on the dinner table. It's brought up like someone could talk about the weather and talk about money, but it doesn't feel like that's the case in other cultures too, and therefore it impacts like the mindset of some entrepreneurs that are based in other places.
yeah.
How can somebody maybe wrap their head around it a little bit differently, because they're going to have to be dealing with numbers for the rest of their life?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's this, so I don't know as much of it's culturally, I definitely agree with you that is a lot of people just don't even talk about money. So it's kind of hard to start understanding what the hell should I do? How do I set a budget, expenses, things like that. It's hard to do that when you've never actually discussed anything related to that. But the other aspect I look at too is the kind of owner, or the mentality of the owner, and more or less like the personality. So if you have people that are very, creative and they love being, in the business and like doing the job, maybe it's a like a chiropractor, or somebody like maybe a physical therapist I love treating patients. They're in medicine. I was like, I love treating patients, and like the business side of it, I'll just kind of push off and just focus on what I love to do. Right. And I do find that's an aspect where you have like that artistic, creative person versus that person who got into the business for that initial reason of like, I want to help, but they figured out how I can leverage my expertise to actually grow the business and help more patients or help more customers. So I don't know, like culturally is definitely an aspect of that. But I just find that it's really what kind of personality do you have? And I think this really goes into understanding your strengths and weaknesses of, all right, I'm not good with math. I'm not good with numbers, but I know it's an integral part of this business. Let me hire somebody that can help me with that. Versus I do feel like there's a lot of people that they just get into it and they're too involved in the business to realize what they're not great at.
Yeah, I think people need to be very kind of well balanced,
Yeah.
like especially as a business owner. So obviously, like if you're looking at this from like a basketball perspective, is that especially with basketball, you play offense and defense, right? So Kobe Bryant, like one of my favorite players of all time, like he was an offensive juggernaut, but he was also a defensive just demon. Like
Yeah.
he can play both sides.
That's why he's better than LeBron. 100%.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and if someone's gonna give a shit about Kobe or LeBron, like if Kobe was 6'8",
He plays
260, yeah, he would destroy. You would be horrified of going against Kobe. Anyways, but with business, it's kind of the same way too. Is that imagine any like a basketball player where all they do is offense, but they really lag on defense. They don't. A complete player, just like a complete business owner, they need to have a really good combination of those two things. at the very least, so they can delegate some stuff in their company that has to do around numbers, but they can't be incompetent around it either, or have a bad attitude
Yeah.
around it.
Well, you know what's dude, like I get like we focus on the sexy numbers, which again, like a lot of people just like to tell people like, oh, I made $2 million, but then it's like I lost 2.3, you know, or if like you see these like big listed companies in the stock market, and it's like they made $2 billion, like they lost fucking $2.5 billion.
Mhm.
So what are we talking about here? It's like, show me when they're making profit instead of outlining, well, in 10 years, we're going to be here. So there is this actually, like you said, it's like, it's not just like that egotistical number of, hey, how much did I make so I can brag and feel good about myself? And then not understand, all right, how much am I paying my employees? How much am I spending? What are my margins? Or, you know,
Yeah.
you've worked with honestly more business owners than I have. Like, how many of them even know what the hell a margin is?
They they struggle with it between like gross and net and all that stuff, but actually where their numbers lie. And I wonder for you, do you feel like a business owner can truly be supremely confident, like 10 out of 10, if they don't know their numbers very well?
No, I don't say how they could. I mean,
Yeah.
they might
Feel like
think,
maybe like disillusioned
yeah,
or
they might think
something.
they're a
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Yeah,
Right?
like,
It's like,
I
I'm
think
like,
my numbers are amazing.
yeah, 100%. It's like, and then you ask them some basic questions like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're at with that.
That's always a weird thing to navigate. I think we've definitely done that where we've had to work with somebody, and then it's like they think they are so good
Yeah.
that they're like they're an amazing business owner, and then we start asking them like, all right, well, what's this and what's this, because that's like business 101, knowing like these particular KPIs,
Yeah.
and in them, it's like we know that they know that I know that they don't know. Like we know what's going on now. And it's a really interesting dance because one side of it is that it's very vulnerable, you know, when people start talking about their finances, because it's a direct expression of their decisions. So like, oh, we're here because of you. And they may not indulge, or they don't know it well enough because they don't want to get caught. Like it's a really interesting thing when we're kind of exploring that.
Yeah, I feel like that's also part of the challenge where the ones who haven't actually mastered their numbers, but they've done well, right? It's like, I'm successful. So they think, well, I must know everything there is to know about the business. So what could you possibly teach me? You know, so it's very interesting where you do have those owners like, hey, look, we're making millions. So whatever I've been doing, that's the way to do it. But then, like you said, you ask them some questions and it's just, well, you know, what does it matter?
Yeah, that's a good kind of framing, because you'll work with someone that's like, we're making millions, we're kicking ass, and then we start asking more questions as far as like how the numbers are truly divided up,
Yeah.
and there is an ego there, where now what we could be talking about to improve the business is almost like they don't want to touch it because it pops that bubble of them thinking that they're the best.
Yeah.
And it's totally not about that. You know, like if there's a business owner that's watching this and they're like, that feeling that I just don't want someone to tell me that I'm not doing good and give me the realities of it, that's a tough thing for them to swallow sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, we're talking about ego, but a lot of that is obviously based on insecurities, you know, and we'll have it. All right. It's just like, what am I not proud of? Like, I opened this business. I should know all this. I think that's where a lot of people kind of trip themselves up. It's like, I should know everything there is to know about this business, including all the numbers and this and that. It's like, and I don't. So let me cover that up by just putting on like a tough kind of, you know, front, so to speak, versus just being able to, like you said, be vulnerable and be honest. And all right, what don't I know? And how is that actually impacting the business?
In your experience, like who, so between like the tough guys and gals, and then the ones that are, hey, I'll be vulnerable with you. I'll love it with you.
Yeah.
I'll humor you. I'll show you everything. Which one do you think at the end of the day are going to have the best success?
Yeah, definitely the one that's honest and vulnerable, right? Because
Do you feel like it's by a short margin, or you feel like it's a
I
country
mean,
mile?
you know, that's the thing, right? Like, and that goes back to my point about like you can still do really well, and I think that's what trips a lot of people up is like, I've been this hard ass, I've done it my way for X amount of years, and it's worked really well for me. So I think really the goal is to sit down and figure out, all right, what is the level I want to get to? Has my approach helped me get there? And then the other aspect too, and this has actually really helped me personally out significantly over the last like few years, is just understanding what have been not just the positive consequences of my way, but more importantly, what are the negative consequences of my way, right? So it's like maybe, hey, you know what? Shit, we could have grown an extra 20%, or we could have grown an extra 100% if we maybe took this approach. Or maybe I wouldn't have lost so many employees due to, them quitting because of my mentality. So I find that when you're vulnerable, you ask different questions and you start doing more self-reflection when it comes down to who you are as not the owner, but like the leader of the company. It's like really understanding who am I and who do I really need to be to actually elevate us to the next level. So I would kind of like flip it on you when you have like business owners that they have the mentality, they've done really well. How do you maybe change their psychology? Be like, all right, maybe there's a different way to do this that would have gotten you to a different level.
So one of it around vulnerability, because vulnerability means to me is that there are no stones that we cannot overturn.
Yeah.
Like there's no dark areas that we can't shine a light on. When someone is not vulnerable, it basically means that there's topics or areas of the business for themselves that they do not want to touch because it is painful. And finances could be a really, really big one. So kind of changing the mindset around a lot of that is making sure that we disassociate between you as a person and the numbers. And that's hard to do because let's call it what it is, like they are directly related to each
100%.
other. But the perspective around that is if the numbers, let's just say the net profit or some other numbers regarding the business are not as good as they can be, it's like it's not you being a failure. It's not you being stupid. It's not you being some dumbass or a average business owner or a shitty business owner. It's not that at all. It's more that you have been doing things in a way that has resulted in this. And now that we know it, that's awesome because now we can do things in a different way where we can get a much better result. So that's good. That would not have been possible if you weren't open. But so like, kudos to you. And also making sure that they know that what's funny is that most people, they won't do that. They won't open up. They won't shine a light on those dark areas of their company because of fear of how they could be perceived. They could look dumb or stupid or just ruthless or whatever it is. So making sure that you kind of quail that and compliment them too as well, that you did something that fact of the matter is a lot of people don't. So the fact that you did means that you're that much further away from the competition. You're that much of a differentiator between yourself and somebody else. So that's positive. That's good. So I always try to frame it in that way that this is not a you thing. This is just you using strategies in your company at this current level of awareness. And for us to get there, we just need to apply new strategies. It's not a you thing. It's just what you knew at the time.
Yeah.
And that, for whatever reason, is like, okay, that wasn't that bad. So once you rip off that first Band-Aid, it's like, all right, that's not that bad. Now it's easier to shine a spotlight in other areas too. And then now you have a true vision of what's going on with the company.
Yeah. I think, and I'd be curious to know what you think about this, but I feel like a big part of that also is just people don't know, again, what the next level looks like, what their goals look like, right? It's just, all right, so what's your goal? I just want to make more money. It's like not for nothing. That's a shit goal. Like if an employee said that, like, here's $1, does that count? They'd be like, no, I want like $10,000 as a raise. Like, then you ask a business owner, it's like, I don't know, just make more than we made last year. It's like, oh, how much? Like, what's a good number, right? So I feel like part of it too is like if you don't know, it's not just not knowing where you're at now, but it's like if you don't have an objective to meet year after year, it's like, what are you actually working towards? And I do find that there's this aspect of not, where people maybe set what they think are goals, but maybe they're more just data metrics. So I'd be like,
or even aspirations.
Yeah,
too. I
like,
just want to help more people. And
yeah.
you're like,
So
what does that mean?
yeah, exactly. It's like
Yeah.
very general. Like, and I got some people I've worked with in the past that I love, and like they bring me like their goals. I'm like, bro, I love you. This goal sucks. Like, it's just so general and bland. It's like, how's this gonna get you excited? And I'm like, what are you even measuring? There's nothing to measure here.
Mhm.
So to your goals, like, I just want to help more people. It's like, pretty sure that's like every business, but like how much? And
When you're seeing that, like, what's that conversation like where they're saying like, all right, well, there's nothing to measure, and they're like, well, should I measure it? Why should I measure it?
I mean, I think it's the old saying, right? What gets measured, help me out here. What gets
What gets measured gets multiplied.
Yeah,
or
we're both fucking it up. But
whatever,
it's like,
yeah.
if you can't measure something,
Managed.
you can't. Yeah,
That's
there you
it,
go.
managed.
You can't improve something that you're not measuring, right? So I think at least the way I look at it is not to go down the rabbit hole of numbers, because I do think that's very easy. It's like, hey, we got And I want to touch on this.
It sucks the life or the fun out
Yeah,
of it
it's
to
like
some
we
people.
got 40 fucking KPIs and 20 goals or OKRs. It's like, and then all you're doing is just getting consumed by data. It's like, you spending any time with the employees? It's like, nah, dude, I'm in the back looking at spreadsheets all day. It's like, that doesn't work. So it's just a matter of knowing what, what goals do we want, like tangible 10 out of 10 goals you're going to create, and then what data points are you going to set to actually measure them. And I do find that, like, I mean, I look at it's like healthcare, right? It's like, want to help more patients. Like, okay, how many? Okay, that's one. And then how do you know if they're actually getting better? Like, how do you know if you're making a bigger difference with patient care? It's like, I don't know. When's the last time you
Yeah,
looked at your cancellation rate or your retention rate? It's like, I don't. So it's like, then how do you know if you're actually doing a good job or not?
it's basics around quality control. Uh, uh, there's this concept of diminishing returns. Sometimes when people go bigger, the quality gets lower,
100%.
right? But there is a major difference between what a business needs to survive or scale and what an owner may want. So, like lifestyle, time off, cars, glitz, glam,
Yeah.
right? Notoriety, personal income. The misalignment between the two leads to conflicting priorities and poor strategic decisions. So kind of going there where you have, because it's legit. I mean,
Yeah.
the business owner got into business. They're starting everything. They're risking everything. They get some success. And so what's that kind of fine balance between like making sure that the business has its needs, but also the owner getting what they want?
Yeah. I mean, we've had a lot of conversation around this, right? It's like you said, I think we all get to a point in our life where, hey, I'm finally making good money, whether you graduated, it's like, cool, I'm making six figures now, or you got your business, like, thank God we're finally getting really profitable. And it's like, I think very human nature for us, just like, let's start spending this shit. Like, I've struggled, I've persevered. Now I'm starting to get money. Let's just go blow it on like vacations or, I think even outside of just like the personal side of it, like you had mentioned, like needs versus wants. I think it also kind of ties back into like within the business. It's like, all right, what do we need right now? What's the next thing that we need versus, hey, I got this money, so I want to actually buy this thing. And I look at it like, do you need that $20,000 CRM system, or would the $5,000 CRM system do exactly the same thing? But you're just looking at what has the most bells and whistles or what's top of the line. It's like Prada versus, I don't know, no name brand, but like, the difference between like $100 bag and a $5,000 bag. If you've been on social media, it's really not much, still made by the same people in China or somewhere in Asia. It costs the same, it does the same thing, but it's like, am I going for the status or am I going for what we really need? So I just think it's an easy way to start spending when you're getting it coming in, thinking now it's going to be like the new norm of making that much money.
With the needs, I always thought it was interesting because when you have a need, it's usually in correlation to something else, right? Like it's that compared to what?
Yeah.
Like you need this because it's going to accomplish this objective here, or where's the need come from? So I always find that once the objective or a clear outcome, or like a desired outcome, is established, then it's easier to determine like what is a want, what is a need, and what is completely garbage. Like
Yeah.
it actually completely derails us. What signs suggest to you that an owner is setting goals based off of ego and emotion rather than data and that need?
Yeah. So again, this is an opinion, right? It's not fact, but I find kind of like what you said, like everything has to be top of the line. Like we have to get the best of the best for everything. Brand names, the most expensive piece of equipment, like hire like new employees that we don't need just so we can say, hey, I have 20 employees now when you maybe only need 12. So those are the things I look at. It's just like, are we itching to spend it as soon as we get it? That's a big one where it's just like, if you don't have the constraints of, all right, let's take the time to analyze what are the needs of the company. Are we growing? Are we stagnant? What does growth look like? What do we need? What are we going to maybe need that we don't need right now, but in 6 months we might need it. So let's do it now. So I feel like if there's no legit analysis, and that's where, business owners they're wonderful, where a lot of them, they just charge right in, right? And you know that better than I do. It's like they just charge right in. It's like, I'll clean up my mess later or somebody else will do it for me. But they don't ask any questions. They don't do any analysis. And then they pay for it versus, all right, let's just slow down a little bit and actually see what is it that we need and how do we figure out what is actually going to help us grow versus just, all right, let's, again, the best of the best. Or, they start doing stuff where it's company expenses but it's like, is it really? Or is it just like,
Yeah,
I'm buying box seats at Allegiant Stadium and it's like, oh, I'm writing it off as a business expense. It's like, is it really a business expense
yeah,
or?
yeah. A lot of that means that they have to do some kind of forecasting.
Yes.
A ton of forecasting. A couple that stick out to me when I observe a business owner is like doing things out of ego or emotion. And emotion doesn't have to be like they're just in this state of sadness or something like that. They could be pissed off.
Oh,
They
yeah.
could be like in a lot of pain. I mean, like operationally, like maybe they're working like 80 hours a week. If you can describe that business owner as having like shiny object syndrome, like everything is just like that's someone that runs off of emotion and ego. Um, if they abruptly pull from their accounts, like financial accounts, they just start ripping money
Yep.
from that. And the other one is when they don't vet people well enough. They could be needing like a new, like a consultant that speaks sweet little nothings to them, or they're working with like a CRM company, or someone that could fix a problem, and they just don't vet things well enough. Vetting it whether we need it, and vetting it whether they're the right person to do it. And if they're really quick on that, and it's a constant revolving door, it really pisses off. Like we've worked in an organization where it's like you're the fifth coach, and it's like, what did they do?
Yes.
Like what happened where like they're just kind of resistant,
Yep.
right? And it's usually because the business owner was emotional. They didn't vet well enough, and their team felt it and they felt it. And so if you're observing that, I definitely think they need to handle their ego and their emotion. But one thing I wanted to ask you too is like, how do you build a goal setting framework that keeps both business health and the personal fulfillment in mind?
Yeah, well, I was gonna actually jump on something you said that I'd like to maybe just expound for a tiny bit because I do feel like maybe there's some people out there like I don't know what that means. I'm talking about forecasting,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was talking about the weather,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when you're talking about forecasting in a business, like for somebody who's like, all right, I don't quite know what the hell that actually means. What could you expand on that just a little bit?
In basic terms, it just means like, what are you trending towards? Like, what if you maintain status quo, if you increase this, or if this continue to get worse in the business, um, what if you were to put it? If you created formulas around it, where does this look like next week, next month,
Yeah.
next quarter, next year? And are these numbers? Is that data showing that like, hey, if you stay on this course, you're going to implode the company. You're basically going to run out of money. Or if you do this, then you're going to make a lot of money, or you're going to do this, or whatever the case may be. So when you're forecasting, a lot of it is just taking the trends of the business, the data of the history of the business, and see like, okay, let's think of where this could be in the future.
Yeah.
So if you land a new account, if you guys are, whatever the turnover rate is, whatever, you pop this in to figure out where the business could possibly be. So the decisions that you make today, be like, all right, well, in 6 months, we're going to double our business. So we kind of need this now. And we rather pay for it now because it's going to pay us back later here. And we should be hitting this number by here. So that's what like forecasting is.
That's like super interesting because I'm just like, as you're saying that, like I'm thinking about those owners like, shit, man, I don't even keep any data. How am I supposed to forecast? Right. And then that goes to your question about like, how do you kind of tease out what you could take on the personal side for the business owner versus leaving the stuff in the business? And, find out both of us have kind of come to a point where it's like, all right, how do you set up like maybe different accounts where it's like, all right, this is just your owner pay. It's not, hey, we did really great this month, so I'm going to just take what I think I should make. And then we did really shitty the next month, but I'm just going to kind of keep taking the same amount. So, this, I know both of us like really kind of read up on like Profit First, great book, but just being able to also just have an idea of like, what am I getting paid? And I love that you've done this before where it's like, how much are you paying yourself as the owner? And what are you doing to actually substantiate that salary, right? So it's like, oh, I'm making $1 million, but then it's like, you're on fucking social media all day. It's like, all right, that's not $1 million job.
Yep.
So there's this aspect of like, what's a real salary that an owner should pay? Because I think on the flip side too, though, like I've made this mistake, but you get the other kind of owners where they're making money. It's like, let me just put it all back into the company, right? It's like, I want to grow the company. And then that's that entrepreneur's like, damn, bro, I left a 40-hour work week job and I'm working 80 hours making shit. Like I'm making less than I was when I was a salaried employee. And it's because they're taking whatever they were making and putting it right back into the company to grow it for something that might happen in 5 years. So I do think it just comes down to have a good understanding of,
Yeah.
right, what's a salary, what's a good rate I should be paying myself, making sure you are paying yourself first, so you're not struggling. I mean, if you're going to start a business for a good reason, you shouldn't like be in the poorhouse to do it. So that's kind of how I would do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can very well have someone like, hey, I was working at this job. I got paid way more. Now I'm a business owner and I'm getting paid like way less, working twice as much. But when you establish your numbers the right way and you can forecast and find out where your trends are, then not only can you see it, but you can also prove it. So that very same person could very well have, like, let's just say a $4 million exit in, like, let's just say 3 to 5 years. And so now when you reverse engineer like how much time and energy you put into it, plus the salary that he was making, even though it was a little bit smaller, getting like let's just say a $5 million exit, it's like, well, now it's kind of worth it. Now it's like $1 million per year. It's like, well, that's actually not a bad thing either. But now they can look at what's needed to get there.
Well, I was gonna say too, I think about, and if I'm not mistaken, man, I feel like it was our episode with Chad Peterson, which I think came out March 13th, if I'm not mistaken. But he talked about the valuation of a business of being predicated on cash flow, right? So it's like you got these business owners who, hey, I'm making a lot, but they're not really making a lot. And then they want to, like you said, they want to exit. And it's like, dude, you have no cash flow. What the hell is this business selling for? But it's like, well, I'm making 7 figures, but you're losing 7 figures. Like you're spending 7 figures. So
yeah, people want to buy the EBITDA.
Exactly.
It's like, I don't want to buy a business where like I'm left with $1. So it's like the business revenues 15 million a year, and you're looking at the cash flow, and it's like you barely have 100 grand left over. Like, why would I buy this?
Yeah. So
you know?
He made some good points. It's like, it's not emotion of like, I built it, so it's worth this. It's what's the cash flow. So even if it's $1 million, but you were making, 15, it's like, all right, you're only going to get like 3 million. It's not no like $30 million sale like you were planning on 3 years ago. So it's like, what did all that hard work go into? So I think it's just a good, kind of like you said, good idea to like, all right, how do you start looking at expenses? What's going out? What am I taking home? Is it,
and also
reasonable?
also like what's the goal too?
Yeah.
I mean, like if you're starting the company, like, yeah, it does make sense to take all possible resources and pop it into the business. If you can, because like that's actually what's going to get it off the ground. It's very similar to like flying a plane that most of the jet fuel is burned off on takeoff, and once it gets cruising altitude, you're all good. But yeah, I mean the numbers are cold blooded. I mean, you kind of have to look at them cold bloodedly. I get the sweat and tears and the emotion that goes into the activities, but when you're looking at the numbers, if you can remove yourself as much as possible, it's way easier for you to take your business at face value of like, this is where we're at for this reason.
Yeah. I look at it like, I think a good, cause I've seen this a ton too. Like, I look at like a healthcare example. It's like that person who comes in and they're morbidly obese, right? And it's like, they're coming in for knee pain, and the doctor's just like, you have no cartilage, you need a knee replacement. It's like, all right, they're 400 pounds. Like, how about we maybe solve the actual major problem first of understanding, what's going to happen long term, versus just like, well, yeah, you definitely need surgery because you have no cartilage. Like, yeah, you're definitely 250 pounds overweight too. So it's like helping to kind of diagnose what the actual issue is. It's going to help really kind of create that sustainable long term. But now, you mentioned creating those goals, right? So if you go on like LinkedIn, which, it's whether you do or don't, whatever, but like you see a lot of stuff like how to set OKRs, how to set KPI. And I feel like people just get so fucking obsessed sometimes with terminology, but curious to know if you could just help somebody out there, like, all right, what the hell is like a real goal? What is a KPI? I'm not sure. How do I know if I'm actually tracking? You got me interested. I want to start understanding the numbers. Where the hell do I start?
So let's kind of take a step back. So an objective is, people can put that as like, it's a goal too as well. A result, an outcome, like basically it's a desired end result.
Yeah.
The thing that you want, that it's completed, it's done. So that could be considered an objective. Like, this is what we're looking to accomplish. That's the objective. And a KPI is something that measures how well you have a likelihood of hitting that, right? So if you have a goal of doing 100 3-pointers, like making 100 3-pointers, So you want to make 100 3-pointers at basketball, using that as an example. And for every 100 that you shoot up, you only get 15 out of 100, which is pretty abysmal.
Pretty bad.
That's very, very bad.
Pretty terrible.
It's pretty terrible.
That's Shaq-like.
So yeah. So what it's going to tell you is that your performance indicator is like, that's pretty low. So to get to the ultimate goal is all over the place. It's going to take a lot versus like Seth Curry, where he can get to those 100 made shots really, really fast. And it's because his percentage is really high. So you could take that same analogy or the same example and put it towards like sales, put it towards conversion rates for your marketing, for whatever. Like, hey, we have a goal to feed 1 billion kids. We have a goal of making 500,000 in sales this week. We have a goal, like that's the objective.
Yeah.
We want to hit this. Hell or high water, we want to hit this. So you want to reverse engineer of like, what are the things that we need to do every single day in order to hit the averages or to hit the numbers in order to achieve that. So you also kind of can look at it from like a fitness perspective, like, hey, I want to lose 30 pounds. Oh, okay, cool. You want to lose 30 pounds. And another kind of terminology that's good is like milestones and commitments. So you can have a goal and an objective. You can have your kind of KPIs of how well you're doing it.
Yeah.
But a milestone are also things that people tend to also have. Is like, if my goal is to lose 20 pounds, a milestone is like, I lost 5. Another milestone is 10. Another milestone is 15. And then to ultimately hit it to 20. And then what are the commitments that I can do or focused activities that I can do in order to hit that? And that could be like making sure I'm only eating 1,500 calories a day. My commitment is to do this per day, do an hour walk every day or 10,000 steps, things like that. So all this really is pretty baseline, pretty basic. It's the goal and then the stats that you show of how well you are doing to complete the goal.
Yeah. So yeah, and I like that. And you said it's basic, and I do find that that's where a lot of people get tripped up, right? We kind of overcomplicate it, and it's just like, dude, just set a goal. But then like to your point, even if you don't know, like, all right, how am I measuring? It's like, man, this one owner is like, I want to, increase like compliance rate or something along those lines. It's like, how do you measure that? It's like, well, what happens when, like, what's the bad result with compliance? Like, so maybe medicine, it's like, all right, I want to improve the amount of notes that don't get denied or something like that. It's like, how do, something that's not so tangible. It's like, how do you measure that? It's like, well, how many times do we get audited? Like, maybe that's the goal, is like to have 0 audits for the next like 5 years or something like that. It's like, okay, that's easy to track, right? So I just think people kind of set some goals that really aren't so easy to actually measure it. And then that's also why it's just like, well, fuck it, it's complicated as hell. So
yeah, I mean, one side of me, I feel like you should watch the numbers that matter, because I think it's really easy to have like 35 objectives and like all these like 50 KPIs and all these things, where like really at the end of the day, it's like, dude, what are the top 5? Like, what are the 5 things that we absolutely need to crush this next quarter? And then what are the 7 to 10, maybe 5 to 7 KPIs that key performance indicators that we are going to keep our eyes on at all times, every single week. We're going to talk about them all the time. That if we do that well enough and we just galvanize the troops and be singular in our vision on these things, then that outcome is going to be achievable. And that's the point.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'd rather have people delete everything else. So it's like, oh, you can check out all these numbers. Like, well, you don't need to. Like, how often do you, like, if you're a relatively healthy person, it's like, do you constantly want to check your blood pressure? Like, no.
Nobody does
like
that.
You don't need to do that. You need to check your weight. Like, you've been the same since you were like 12. Like, no, you don't need to do that. You need to check maybe this or this, and that's it. Out of all of the other 300 biomarkers you can do, like, just look at those 2.
Yeah, it's important to, it's very important to be individualized and, like you said, do what's relevant for you, right? Versus like, hey, Amazon measures this. Like, you're not Amazon.
You're
like,
not Amazon. Yeah.
What's important to you? Like, if you're, I want to.
So your cheeseburger stand, you don't need to look at the international markets.
Yes, 100%. Like, what's gold at these? No, but it's like understanding too, though, of what are we actually, like you said, like, what are we measuring that's going to help us move the needle forward? And it's like having an objective, but then what's going to dictate whether or not maybe I want to improve customer service. Like, all right, what actually represents that? Are you tracking referrals? Are you tracking reviews? And like,
Yeah.
gosh, you know what I mean? Like some
I
basic
think
stuff like
I
that.
think this is where kind of art goes into business.
Yeah.
I really really do. When you're a filmmaker and you're trying to break down a scene and you're like in an editing room, it is very much like a collaborative process between you, an editor, maybe a producer, a writer, and you're trying to figure out like how can we best express this? How can we make some of these technical adjustments in order to feel a certain type of way? And I don't think that's too far off from business either, because you are making technical adjustments in the business so we could feel like it's successful.
Yeah.
Because the numbers reflect that, like, hey, we're not in the hole, we're not owing anybody, we're not doing anything. And I feel like the component that gets the component to success on all this that gets you thrown off on the wayside is lack of communication with a team.
Yeah.
So like many owners keep financials and visions almost siloed, that, you know, assuming the team doesn't know, but without visibility, employees can't align their goals with the company's bigger goals. Like if someone's trying to buy a house and they're like, I don't really see any growth here, and I'm trying to get into a piece of property like for my family or something, but you have this business owner talking about these big goals, but employee is confused. Like, how does that help me?
Yeah. That's that. I mean, I was actually gonna ask you that. As like, you know, when you see business owners like getting an understanding of the numbers and then setting realistic goals, how often do you see it that they're doing, or at least desiring maybe to want to do it themselves, versus maybe do they have a leadership team to bring in and do this collaboratively? So what do you typically see on that end?
I typically see that the business owners, they are not communicating with their team on what they want, but they're positioning it as like, you know, what the business is going towards, right? Like if I were to say, hey, the business is at, you know, 2 million and I'm trying to get it to 15 million. If you're saying it and it's unsavory and it's just like, I want to get this business to 15 and no one's going to get a raise. And it's just like, dude, you're going to lose. It's like they say in sports, you're going to lose your locker room. You're going to lose your team. But I feel like, you want to hit on all spots on why people are driven, which is usually like recognition, it's dominance, it's money, it's you know, certainty, uncertainty, right? Like there's drives for people,
Yeah.
and your organization is going to have that. And I think business owners really miss the mark of growth because their team is just not willing to run through a wall for each other or for the organization because they don't know where they're going. They don't know why it all matters. It's just a paycheck. And if people can feel like what I do every single day matters because this company has a scoreboard every single day of how much sales we did, how many people that we helped, because a percentage of that goes to a local charity that feeds kids. And every day they're talking about how many kids are we going to feed today.
Yeah.
And that pushes people differently. You're still going towards goals. You're still doing these activities, but now there's a reason, there's a purpose. It's fulfilling. It feels good. And I don't think that enough business owners are casting a vision for their organization and galvanizing everybody together.
Yeah, I love that. I also think, and I'm curious to know what you think, but I also think that some business owners they set a vision, but it's like so, you know, you hear this thing about, what's your big, hairy, audacious goal? It's like, well, I'm making $200,000 now, but next year we're going to make 20 million. It's like, all right, like that's not realistic either though. So it's like, sometimes you shoot for the moon. I know it's like shoot for the moon and you land among the stars, but it's like, all right, like, are people going to work towards something that they're like, this is a fucking ridiculous goal? And not incorporating even maybe a leadership team, right? Maybe it's just your leadership team is one person.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a confidant or a manager or a director or whatever it is. Like, all right, let's talk this out together and see what is realistic. Like you said, it's like we got our numbers. We can forecast now. What's a realistic goal that also makes people know we're not ridiculous and we're realistic, but then also make sure that we're not setting something that in their head they're like, we're going to get burned out. Like, how are we going to do this? You don't want to spend any money on reinvesting in the company, but now we're going to like 10x in a year. And I love Tony Robbins has this thing. He's like, we as people overestimate what we can do in a year, but then underestimate what we can do in 10. And I was like, damn, bro, he's so right. Cause like there's so many times like, I'm going to do this year. And I'm like, I didn't even get close.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, all right, that was actually like a 3-year goal.
Right.
So I do think, to your point about like talking to the team too, it's like, setting things that are realistic and maybe a little bit of a stretch. I don't think it should be the easiest goal. I know some people like, I'm just going to set something that we can hit so we all feel good. It's like, that's not growth.
It's, you know, this is a tough one because I've seen organizations like double every single year, where now they're like 800 million. Like it's crazy. And you have other ones that have been stagnant,
Yeah.
only maybe growing a small percentage every single year, and that's okay with that business. So when it comes to this, I feel like no matter what, long-term vision should probably be a little bit closer to the chest sometimes, because it can feel rather big, especially if you're talking to employees where like to them it feels impossible.
Yes.
But maybe to another business owner or like a colleague, it's like, no, dude, that's ambitious. It's going to be a bitch to get to, but you could totally do it. And it's like, you are 10xing.
Yeah.
And companies do 10x. They do go through that. So there's a fine balance of, if you have that drive and you are made out of that stuff to just get after it, and your team is crazy too, go for it, dude. Just reverse engineer it on what needs to happen these next 90 days. Go in short sprints. It's easier for the team. It's way easier. That's why quarters are kind of there. The quarters are there for, in like basketball games, they're soccer games, business, the year, in academia, there's breakdowns of time. Yeah, it breaks down. So I wouldn't just go long-term vision and then like, all right, guys, get back to work. It's like long-term vision, which means we need to set ourselves up for success here on year 4 by doing this by year 3, which means now we need to do this. And the easy breakdown is, this quarter, we're all going to focus on X, Y, and Z. We need to accomplish this, which will set up here to do this. And so make sure that the employees are very focused on the short term, and make sure to celebrate it too.
Yeah.
Make sure to do something that makes it feel like worthwhile, whether it's like a day off or a couple days off, or it's a bonus or a comp structure upgrade, something that they're incentivized of doing it, so that you can have accountability and dependency on each other, instead of it's just raining down on people. You want to have little mini leaders to make sure like they're getting shut down too.
Yeah. And I find that that's a great way when you don't do that. Like what you just described is like definitely the way we should be doing it. Like what's our goal for the quarter, or maybe it's, you want to do monthly, whatever it is, but it's like people set these long-term gigantic goals, and then that's all the focus is on, and it's overwhelming. It's like, to your point, like, how the hell are we ever going to do that? And then it just makes a lot of us, and I find that this actually trips up a lot of business owners too, because then they get to a point like, that's a pretty fucking big goal. Like, how am I going to do that without having any kind of like a smaller wins along the way kind of thing to track our progress? It's like, oh shit, it's like, that's massive. So like, I'm getting a little freaked out just trying to manage the day-to-day stuff. So maybe I'll give up on that big goal and just kind of focus on the here and now. So I love that you said that, because that is really relevant, of just focusing on the next 30 or the next 60, 90 days, something like a sprint, to kind of just go from one section to the next.
Way, 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 way easier. Here's something that's kind of interesting, is how geography influences this.
Like everything I just talked about.
Yeah, everything we talked about. Because it seems like when we work with someone that's like on the West Coast, like a West Coast entrepreneur versus an East Coast entrepreneur, there seems to be just a gigantic, they're literally,
blasphemy.
Yeah, it's a big difference. How would you describe kind of the leadership or business like focus or psychology of people that are East Coast versus West Coast?
You know, so it's so interesting because, you know, if you go back to the 90s, right? Like rap, it's like West Coast, East Coast, but it's like there really is a big difference. And I know we look at it like personality wise, and that is, I think, the biggest thing is what kind of personality is in that region, and then it kind of dictates what kind of actions you end up taking. So, you know, like obviously for me, I'm like from New Jersey, northeast, northern part by New York City. Very intense. Like it is fast paced. It's not for everybody. It's fast paced, a lot of urgency, sometimes too much, but like it's very outcome oriented. Like it's very kind of like Gary Vee kind of personalities, a lot of grit, a lot of toughness. And it's just, what's the outcome? Like that's what we're focused on. Like, when's the result? Did we get the result already? But they're able to they move at a fast pace versus, you know, even moving out in Vegas now where we're at. Yeah, it's slower paced, but then you see that kind of carry over. It's just like, you know, it's like a little more even keel. There's not as much urgency. And
what drives you like off the wall more, like dealing with West Coast business
No,
people
it
or
is
East
it
Coast?
is that. It's just, they're both good and bad, right? It's like, again, like kind of feeds into strengths and weaknesses. That person who's from the Northeast and is very like high D, like dominant, urgent, they're gonna get a lot of shit done.
Mhm.
And for me, where it's healthcare, that's a good thing, right? Because patients want to get better. And if you're servicing customers, clients, whatever, they want results and they typically want it sooner rather than later,
Mhm.
right? So if it's, all right, I can get this for you in 6 months or 2 months, I think most of us would say, if it's done the right way, I'll take the 2 month approach. That's how that mentality is. But it also sometimes creates an unrealistic expectation too, which is, hey, I know you said it should take 6 months, but I kind of expect it to be done in 2 months. Like they
Yeah.
don't give things time to play out. And if there's a bigger focus, I feel like on the present, like what are we doing now? And there's not as much focus on the long term. Whereas the business owners and just people in general in the West Coast are a little more easygoing. So they tend to, culture is a little bit different with employees, a little bit more innovative because they are thinking like, what's going to happen in 5, 10, 15 years, And I do think that's why you see a lot more tech,
Mhm.
California, especially San Fran and Seattle, and not as much in New York City and, Philly and those areas. So like they're both good and bad. I don't think one's worse than the other or better than the other.
What kind of advice, just to kind of wrap it up, like if you're working with someone on the East Coast, what are some things on some characteristics of West Coast leaders that you wish like East Coast entrepreneurs would adopt and vice versa?
Yeah, I think it's just like the two things I just said, culture and a little more innovative long-term planning.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is you do have more, and again, it's not everybody. So like, let's understand it's not the whole Northeast.
Yeah,
When I
calm
don't,
down. If
I
you're
know it's
pissed
like,
off,
but
you're
that is a
already-
stereotype, right? Like
What is he
people,
talking about?
everybody in New
Shut
York
up.
City is a dick. Like they're all push it to the side. It's like, that's not realistic either, but we're in a sense of accomplishment. So what I'd like to see, people in the Northeast is like, ease up on the aggression a little bit. And again, that's just the culture. So it's like, is that going to happen? Probably not. But it's like figuring out how that aggressive nature has helped you, but then understand, all right, how has that hurt me in the sense of communicating to my team, building a great culture?
Mhm.
How's not being as innovative or long-term planning wise, how's that maybe affected us negatively in the sense of like, what's going to happen 2 years from now, 5 years from now? I know some professions like, I can't think that far ahead. It's like, you have no choice. Certainly in healthcare, where it's like, all right, every year we're getting paid less and less from insurance. So what's it gonna look like in 5 years? Or what's it gonna look like if doctors start getting replaced by robots? Like, how do we plan for that? They don't really think like that. So that's where they could improve their self. And then I think from the West Coast, even just at least, business owners and healthcare itself, having interacted with plenty of them at this point, it's just, all right, can we create a little more urgency here and not give it as much time? And they like to give a little more, freedom and flexibility of just like, all right, we just kind of, you guys figured things out. And it's like, we're looking to you to be the person to kind of tell us sometimes what to do. Like that's
Mhm.
what a doctor is. That's what a business owner is like, you're the expert. So how are you helping us get to the next level and not have it take 5 years, 10 years down the road? So I would say a little more urgency on their side of it, and a little bit more focus on probably the present. So it's very interesting how they kind of
Yeah.
balance each other out. They would never probably work with each other,
Yeah.
but like they would really be the perfect match.
So I love it, man. Like there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of tips and tricks that we covered today. So if you're a doctor, if you're a business owner and you're like, I don't know where to begin, I don't know where to start, I don't know who to talk to, I would suggest actually connecting with us. Do that. We've demonstrated a lot here. And if you're not sure kind of where to go, there's a link that's going to be on this episode description. Connect with us. We'd love to see if we can, help you guys out.